In Palestine, human rights organizations denounced that the Israeli regime uses hunger as a weapon of war in Gaza. More than 2 million Palestinians suffer from hunger due to Israel's police. In Ecuador, authorities report the escape of another inmate from Riobamba prison as violence escalates and the government increases security deployment throughout the country. And in France, the Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne presented her resignation. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. More than 2 million Palestinians are suffering from hunger as a direct result of Israel's policy of depriving them of food in the Gaza Strip. Through a report, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories detailed that the Gazans spent days and nights without being able to consume food. The document also points out that the inhabitants depend entirely on supplies brought from outside due to the crop fields, factories and warehouses destroyed by the Israeli occupation. Furthermore, the Israeli army only allowed a fraction of supplies to enter, and it's classified as a war crime, and the entity calls on the world to take urgent measures. Humanitarian organizations denounce that at least 10 Palestinian children suffer amputations every day as a result of the constant Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip. The organization Save the Children highlights in a statement the recent UNICEF report where it indicates that 1,000 minors in Gaza lost one or both limbs as a result of the Israeli attacks. In this regard, they indicated that the worsening health crisis and the severe lack of medical supplies forces doctors to amputate limbs, sometimes without anesthetics, painkillers, and through rapid procedures outside health facilities. Meanwhile, on the 90th day of the genocide perpetrated by Israel, the occupying forces continued this Tuesday attacks against different points of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli siege continues in the Gaza Strip. Dozens of families of Israeli detainees have headed to the crossroads of Karem Shalom in the south of the Gaza Strip to prevent the humanitarian aid entry in the coastal enclave until the war is stopped and until the children are released. Our correspondent Huda Hegazi with the details.
The Palestinian sources have assured that today dozens of families of Israeli detainees, of Israeli hostages who are here in the Gaza Strip have headed today in a convoy to the crossroads of Kerem Shalom, which is in the south of the Gaza Strip, to prevent the humanitarian aid entry in the coastal enclave until the war is stopped and until their children are released, since they have ensured that they fear for the life of the Israeli hostages who are in the Gaza Strip. Since from the beginning of this Israeli atrocity, at least 60 Israeli Marines have lost their life. But due to the same missiles of the Israeli entity, that is, Israel has been herself who, with her own missiles, have been the one who has killed the hostages who are here in the Gaza Strip. These families are doing everything possible to make this war stop, to be able to free their children. But nevertheless, at this moment, they have not been able to achieve anything. They have gone out to several demonstrations in Tel Aviv, in the occupied territories, asking Netanyahu, the prime minister Israeli, to stop this war in the Gaza Strip so that an exchange of prisoners is carried out. But nevertheless, Netanyahu has assured that he will continue the war. He fears for the life of the Israeli hostage, but that his main objective is to achieve military objective, and therefore the war should continue. Therefore, the families of these hostages have been seen in the need, or have been seen in the obligation that they must do anything to save the life of their children. And today they have decided to head to the current Shalom border to pressure either the Palestinian authorities or the Israeli authorities that they will not allow the Gaza Strip to be free until their children are released. With this, we can see how the families of these prisoners are in the need, totally collapsed. They have reached the maximum level of frustration that they are willing to do anything to make their children free. Even 2 days ago, we heard that several of the families of these Israeli hostages had also been directed to the Qatari city to try to talk to the Egyptian intermediaries with the Qatari intermediaries to pressure Israel and the Palestinian resistance to take an exchange of hostages. But however, as we all know, these negotiations between Israel and Hamas have been stopped after the murder of Hamas leader Saleh al-Rouri, and therefore they are trying to do everything possible so that these negotiations return to stand up. As I have said, these families have reached the maximum level, they have reached their frustration, and they are trying to do everything possible to save the life of their children who have been put in danger here in the Gaza Strip due to the same bombing of the army of Israel and this coastal enclave.
During a bi-weekly United Nations press briefing, representatives of the World Health Organization based in Jerusalem and Gaza offered insight into the desperate humanitarian crisis currently unfolding in the Gaza Strip as the conflict between Israel and the Hamas enters its fourth month.
Shrinking humanitarian space is evident. We see evacuation orders in new areas every couple of days. That means that those are areas that are unsafe, where hostilities are actively underway. We request coordination. We coordinate with the parties to the conflict that we can move safely. And those requests have consistently, for the last few days, been denied. The food situation in the north is absolutely horrific. There's almost no food available, and everybody we talk to begs for food. And the food is just not, there's not enough coming in, and there's not enough to feed the 2 million people who are in the Gaza Strip. And
the government of Algeria called for the convening of the United Nations Security Council in view of the danger of Israel forcing a mass exodus of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. As a non-permanent member of the organization, Algeria suggested holding a session on January 12 to address the threat of forced eviction. In recent weeks, several Israeli officials, including national security and finance officials, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, respectively, have called for evicting the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and populating the territory with Israeli settlements. According to the United Nations, 1.9 million Gazans have been displaced inside the besieged Palestinian enclave. The government of Iran denounced on Tuesday that the assassinations carried out by Israel against journalists in Palestine revealed not only their crime, but the fear of being judged by the people of the world. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian explored the killing of more than 100 journalists by the Israeli occupation forces while they were covering the genocide in the Gaza Strip, an unprecedented number in the history. Tehran's foreign minister stressed Israel's fears of the knowledge and judgment of the peoples of the world of the atrocities committed in the Gaza Strip, where more than 23,000 Palestinians have been killed. The top Iranian diplomat expressed his condolences to the families of the slain Gaza journalists, especially the so-called hero journalist who lost all members of his family, including a journalist's son, in the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Ecuador, authorities reported the escape of another inmate from the Riobamba prison. In response to this, government increased the security deployment throughout the country. The mayor of the municipality of Riobamba, John Vinuesa, informed that Fabricio Colón, leader of the Wolves, was recently arrested by order of the prosecutor Diana Salazar. Vinuesa assured that of the 39 arrested, 12 were recaptured by police authorities. In response to this escalation, the national executive increased the presence of law enforcement agents in the most affected municipalities of the South American country. Ecuador's Ministry of Education, in the face of the prison crisis sweeping the country, suspended classes to avoid endangering the lives of students and teaching staff. The ministry informed that the necessary measures are being taken to ensure the safety of educational communities as well as the continuity of learning. Educational authorities are working with national police and governors to determine the possible risk of two educational institutions. The mayor of the Metropolitan District of Quito, Pavel Muñoz, requested the national government to militarize the strategic installations of the city to guarantee their operation. The mayor recalls in his message that the country and Quito are working through an unprecedented security crisis. Muñoz demands all the protection of the state, the government and its security forces to safeguard the right to life. The mayor indicated that after completing the meeting to evaluate the current situation, he decided that all agencies of the municipality of Quito increase their presence in public spaces and are ready to intervene in coordination with the government in case of incidents. Muñoz assured that he will enforce security in critical areas and public services of the city. Panama commemorates Martyrs' Day in honor of the popular march of January 9, 1964, against the presence of U.S. troops. That day, some 200 students rallied to defend the flag in the Canal Zone ceded to the U.S. The military responded with fire. Hundreds of young people were wounded and more than 20 were killed. The action led to a decisive turning point in the relations between the Isthmus and Washington. Panamanian authorities and several organizations will carry out several acts to remember the date. Some 200 students rallied to defend the flag in the Canal Zone ceded to the U.S. Military responded with fire, as we said. The Venezuelan National Assembly unanimously approved the draft resolution by which the passage to the national pantheon of Brigadier General Domingo Antonio Cifuentes is consented. During the first ordinary session of the Venezuelan Parliament in 2024, the Venezuelan deputies honored General Domingo Antonio Cifuentes on the 112th anniversary of his death. As part of the agenda of the Venezuelan Assembly, it was agreed to honor General Domingo Cifuentes as fatherland's hero. At the end of the session, the President of the National Assembly invited the parliamentarians to participate in the homage to the hero in his transit to the national pantheon. This agreement is contemplated in the Article 187, number 15 of the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which grants the National Assembly the power to grant the honors of the national pantheon to illustrious Venezuelans who have rendered eminent services to the Republic.
Of a military man trained in our army, and at the same time a man of letters, an intellectual, who was called by Mario Briceño Iragorri, the Quixote of nationality, who was also known as the terror of the English, for what they humbly called the Cuyuni incident, but it was nothing more than a real battle, as mentioned by our President Nicolás Maduro, who took prisoners in the English commander and other criminals who were taken to Puerto Ordaz to answer to the justice of Venezuela.
Likewise, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez said that the demonstrations on the campaign for the Essequibo reflect the patriotism of General Cifuentes.
These recent demonstrations of patriotism expressing the operational activity of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces on our Atlantic coast, in a teacher who teaches his students the greatness of Venezuela, in a child who paints our national flag in our Essequibo, in citizens that express their will to recover the stolen territory in the consultative referendum on December 3rd, perfectly match one of the great recommendations that General Cifuentes gaming his lifetime for the following years.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In France, the French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne presented her resignation, which was accepted by the President of the country, Emmanuel Macron. Borne, 62, served as Prime Minister of France since May 16, 2022, being the second woman to hold the post after Edith Cresson. Through his account on the social media X, the President thanked the minister for her performance. In this regard, the Élysée Palace announced that the Prime Minister, together with the members of her cabinet, will continue to deal with the current problems until the appointment of a new government. Earlier, local media reported that Borne's possible successors would include Defense Minister Chief Sébastien Lecornu, Finance Ministry Chief Bruno Le Maire, as well as Environment Minister Christopher Béchu. However, President Emmanuel Macron appointed Gabriel Attal, Minister of Public Actions and Accounts, as the new Prime Minister. As soon as the appointment of Gabriel Attal as the new Prime Minister of France became official, deputies from across the political spectrum reacted in the main hall of the National Assembly.
Basically, he's a new avatar succeeding an old avatar, and Emmanuel Macron is, in a way, succeeding himself. What does the appointment mean? Given that we have seen the President of the Republic praise the departure of his Prime Minister, who clearly fulfilled the task he entrusted her, is it about getting a new majority? I don't think so. Is it to get a new line? I don't think so either.
France experienced one of its coldest days in 6 years. Normandy and the D-Day landing beaches woke up to a thin layer of snow between 3 and 5 centimeters, causing some transport disruptions and a lack of traders in markets. French authorities temporarily closed 2 highways on Tuesday as authorities scrambled to deploy salt trucks and tow vehicles after a cold snap hit the country. Transport Minister Clement Beaune argued that the National Weather Agency had not predicted snow overnight. Thermometers across the country are forecast to drop below 0 degrees Celsius on Tuesday, except in a small swath of southeastern France, according to the National Weather Bureau. In Belgium, authorities initiated plans to help homeless people over the winter on Monday. Working with homeless organizations, the plans aim to provide optimal shelter for the people in Brussels to get through the winter safely. The extreme cold plan allows organizations operating on the ground to open new shelters for the homeless. In total, 145 additional places with a capacity of 100 people will be provided on top of the existing shelters in Brussels. They will be opened for a month, 24 hours a day, and will welcome applicants for a week, while this storm, which can be extremely dangerous for the people on the streets, passes. Several organizations will meet on Thursday to agree on measures and discuss increasing the number of places in existing shelters. Some shelters are already at capacity. In Japan, authorities are urging people to take extreme precautions in the face of a rain and a snowstorm that has hit the country after the 7.6 magnitude earthquake on January 1st. The Noto Peninsula and its surroundings are experiencing persistent seismic activity with about a week that the earthquake that have left at least 180 people dead. Meteorological authorities are urging caution as the storm could cause landslides and avalanches or lead to the collapse of already unstable houses. Caution also applies to 28,000 people who remain displaced and the thousands of households that continue to experience power outages in freezing temperatures. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.